Welcome to the Getting Married Multiculturally podcast, Rachel and Vidur. I'm super excited to have you guys here, and thank you for taking your time to talk to me. This is my first time interviewing two people, so I'm just letting the listeners know that we'll just figure things out as we go. Can you please introduce yourself to the listeners and maybe tell a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what's your nationality, and all of that stuff?
Sure. I'm Rachel Miller Modgill. I was born in South Carolina, but I lived most of my life in Dallas, Texas. And Vidur and I will get into this later, but we met at Baylor University for college, and I now work at Baylor University as well. That's in Waco. It's about an hour and a half away. I'm
Vidur Modgill. I come from North India. It's a small state called Haryana, and I'm Indian, and I came to US around 7 years ago to do my master's here, and that's where I met Rachel. And currently I work as a senior marketing manager in Dallas.
Oh, okay. That's cool. So before we get into the wedding, the story of the wedding and all the details that I'm really excited to know about, can you guys talk a little bit about how did you met and how did you get engaged and all the beginning before the wedding stage of your guys' life?
Sure, I'll go ahead. So at Baylor, we had a small Indian community. So one of my close friends, Aditi, was actually Rachel's roommate. So once she invited us over, she had cooked Indian food, and that's where we met. I met Rachel the first time. And I liked her too. She liked me also. So our friend kind of tried to hook us together. And they kind of pushed us to see, like, you guys are good for each other. You should start dating. And we kind of dated for a couple of months. And then because she was about to graduate, so we weren't sure where this was going. But then we kept in touch with each other, and then after 6 months or 7 months of dating, I would say, we started of talking to each other, we started seriously dating, and 2 years after that, we got engaged.
Mm-hmm. But you guys lived in the same town in that period of time?
No, I had started working, after I graduated, I started working at Baylor, which was an hour and a half away from his job in Dallas. So now that we've gotten married, we've actually kept those jobs, and I just drive the distance. But we were a little bit long distance before that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's actually a really similar story to mine. That I met my husband at school before the school year ended, the last week of the school year, and we also had his friend who kind of wanted to get us together, and then he arranged me to go into his classroom and introduced us to each other, and then we went to a party where we got together, and
yep, it's very similar.
Very similar.
Yeah. Only difference is that we were like a long distance relationship from like the other side of the world because he moved back to America.
That's impressive. I don't know if I could do that. That's props to you.
Yeah. Well, we only did it for 4 or 5 months, and then I ended up moving here, but it's still hard. Yeah. I guess even if you're a couple of hours away from each other, if you just don't make the time, or if you can't, then you really are just in a long distance. How often were you guys able to like see each other?
Every weekend, I think. We were, when we are long distance, we are seeing each other every weekend because it's not that far. It's 1.5 hour drive. So it was just like, depending on what's happening at her work or my work, most of the time she came to Dallas because that's where her family and friends were and are. And sometimes when she would have to work on weekends, then I would go to Waco's. And so we kind of balanced that out. But it was like we met. There was very rarely a weekend that we did not meet.
It was just funny because for me at that time, because my family lives in Dallas and all my friends, I was going to see them in the beginning, and then it was like, oh, I guess I'll see Vidur. But then I realized I was going to see Vidur, and then maybe I guess I'll see my family if I get to it. So that was the moment that I realized, like, oh, we're not just talking anymore. Like, oh, I actually want to date him.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys ever think that you're gonna be in a multicultural relationship, that you're ever gonna end up with somebody from a different culture?
So we like yes and no. Most of the guys that I had dated were not white men. That just
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't my type.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but at the same time, they were American.
Mm-hmm.
But they may be first or second generation to where their parents were immigrants to the country.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a little bit of experience with that, but I really didn't fathom that I would marry someone who came from the entire other side of the world and had no familiarity with America. Like, I honestly didn't think whether that could be possible, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was slightly similar but different for me. Like again, I was in India and for most of my life, so it wasn't that like that was never an option. But I never actually thought too deep about it because to me it was about more of personal connection. I never discounted the fact that like, oh, I can be in a multicultural relationship, but that wasn't ever in my radar. I was more looking for a person who understands me rather than thinking about like, I didn't want to look like, oh, I'm looking for somebody who has the same culture or something. I was just looking for more personal qualities. So it's kind of an interesting question because we were thinking through like what we wanted in life, and I think that's where it clicked for me. For that, like this is what I want in life. So in a way, it wasn't even a variable for me. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, definitely. That's kind of how it was for me too. Just it didn't really see the culture. It's more about connecting to the person. And then I feel like when you get into the relationship in a deeper level and you commit yourself to it and you guys start to live together, get married, like that's when like little subtle cultural differences kind of start to come out and you questioning, why am I doing this? That's just how I used to do it. And my partner is asking me, but why? And I have to answer this question. And it's kind of, you realize that it is something cultural, that's something that you brought from your home. And yeah, but I guess that's the exciting part of being in an intercultural relationship, right?
Absolutely. I think in my regards, the personality comes first, and then slowly as you go over time, you realize the multicultural aspect of it. Like first, because again, depending on if you're just dating, you're meeting for a couple of dates, you don't get to see the full spectrum of personality and culture. But then when you start, as you said, living together or start spending more time together, then you start seeing more things in the culture and see how they work.
Do you want to, Vidur, share a little bit about your cultural experience, like moving to America? If you had any culture shocks, or because you came from a really diverse culture, are there anything that sticks out to you that was a little bit surprising or unexpected for you, or regardless of your relationship with Rachel?
I think one of the things, especially since we came in Texas, like I came to Texas, one of the thing was like the space in Texas, and it was just social cues were some of the things that I had to learn about, like certain social cues, and it was more understanding people and what they mean and catching up with the, I would say, references, like when I say cultural references. And America is a very diverse country too. Like right now we are in Boston, and like there is a complete different set of accents or dialects and even just references as you go through. So when I moved to Texas, like I came as a clean slate. Like I read about it, what it is, and where I'm going. However, the big one of the good thing was my brother was already living in the state, so he was able to help me a little bit understand like what the state is, how. Because to me, when you move to any other places, there are two quick things even before meeting people that you have to adjust to. That is about like weather and essentially like transportation, like how do you get from one place to another? Like those are the two biggest things that even when you're not meeting somebody. So my brother was able to like understand like Texas, Texas does not have like too much of public transport, so you need to get like really get a car so that you can drive around and weather. But I think like one of the biggest thing was like many times the things that you learn are from movies and just like in any culture. So one of the thing I really find that American people are really, really nice, like which was like unlike most of the stuff that is portrayed sometime. One of the thing I realized that they are so nice sometimes that if they won't share they won't share, I guess like sometime if you did something that is kind of out of normal. So yeah, they just won't correct it. They are so nice. So I had to make friends who would tell me things that like you're like saying this word wrong, or because in India the English is different. It's derived from British English. So it took some time to learn that they are so nice that they won't say these things to you because they do not want to make you uncomfortable. So there is a lot of emphasis, and which was another thing, because coming from India, Indian people are really nice too, but in a different way. They love to help you, and they would like in such cases like I have my friends who have corrected me, like even that in India, but here it took some time to gain confidence on that part.
I have so many similar experiences than what you said, and you know, it's especially that I like that your viewpoint on people trying to be, they're too nice that they don't know if you make a mistake. I kind of interpreted that as being dishonest because they're not telling me the truth. You know, and then sometime I would even try to say something about how I truly feel about it, and then my husband, who's American, he would tell me, you can't really tell that to people because they're gonna be offended or think it differently, or you know, it's just kind of that social cues and how to what kind of words to use to be to not, you know, hurt people's feelings. That's really interesting. Yeah.
And another quick realization was, I think, and that was really early, was politics. In India, especially from where I am, people love discussing politics. Like that is something that is almost like a discussion with my coworkers when I was working in India, or like when I was in college, people would independently discuss it. And it's like agree to disagree is a really good like stopping point there, where that is something I had to learn. Like even though I had read it, like how it is like trained, how it is told to everybody just to say like it's impolite to discuss politics, and you cannot do that. Like that was a realization that is not just a suggestion, that is actually a real fact, that don't do this, because if you do this, people will think differently of you.
I mean, I think a lot of these things he adapted after starting to date me, because I asked him pretty early on, like, hey, do you want me to correct your English? Do you want me to tell you when you're talking too much politics or something? And he was like, yes, please, nobody else will. See that early on, where like, that's my Americanness in me, like feeling hesitant to call somebody out and make them feel bad for who they are. You know? So, especially when he met my parents, I was like, do not talk about politics and religion, please.
No politics, no religion. That's what they tell me when we go somewhere.
Absolutely.
But that's good that you guys felt connected that way immediately, of feeling this safe space of we can tell each other. You know, and sometimes my husband would, in a jokingly way, not correct my English, but just like repeat the word that I said wrongly. And then, you know, it's just like a little teasing, and then I just make fun of it and we're just laughing. So I think that if you as a foreigner don't take it not seriously, but not offensive, then it can be really constructive for both of you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is there any story for you, Rachel, that sticks out to you about him that was maybe culturally a little bit different than what you're used to?
A lot of people listening will probably know that in India, you don't really tell your parents when you're dating someone. You tell, well, one, there's arranged marriages where they tell you, here's a set of women that I think will be great for you. Or if you're ready to marry someone, you surprise them by saying, here's the girl I want to marry. I hope you like her, and hope that they approve. Whereas in America, you introduce your boyfriend to your parents about 3 months when you decide that you're serious. So when we decided we were serious, I introduced Vidur to my mom and my dad. And then I was kind of waiting for him to introduce me to his brother, who was living in Houston at the time. And, eventually his parents via Skype or something. And it never happened. And I think I just kind of asked him one day, and I realized that they didn't know I existed.
Oh.
And so that was a big shock for me, because in America that signifies that, he's embarrassed of me, he doesn't think it's long term, all these things. So that was like a pretty big, like probably our first shaky issue in our relationship, which I think is really common for a lot of people who are dating Indian people.
Yeah.
But he very, it took me a while to get around to it, but he explained what I just told you, that in India, like, parents don't expect you to introduce them to a girlfriend, because at that point you're not a girlfriend, you're the fiance, and that's a whole, like, way over here step that you're not ready.
One of the things I was trying to tell her is, like, there is a lot of distance involved with my parents there. And it's, of course, like, I don't want to strain our relationship in that way also, that it becomes a thing that, like, they're like, when is it coming? When are you getting engaged? What is happening? I was deciding, like, I did not want to put undue pressure on a relationship. And I wanted it to naturally grow at a place, because I knew my parents are very open-minded. They would never have any concerns about it. So that part I was less worried about. I was more worried about preserving our relationship and making it pass through all our stresses, like making sure that she and I are comfortable with everything. And once we had been through that, like, that was one of the biggest shaky thing. I was like, okay, now I feel like we have reached a spot, like, that it's a cultural understanding that I was able to communicate to her, and she is empathetic enough that she understood that why am I doing this. So it kind of respected, like, how Indian parents are also, that, like, it was like, yes, this is the girl I want to marry. And they met her and they saw her in those eyes instead of seeing her as a girlfriend. Like, seeing her as a girlfriend who I may not be serious about. So we didn't have to go through that phase at all. Like, I literally introduced, like, this is the girl I want to marry, and this should be, like, do you have any question? And they were like, no, we like her a lot, and this is perfect. Like, when are you planning to do things? And that's the fact, like, we already had a date in mind by that time. When do we want to get married? So it was so easy for them, because usually in India, as Rachel was saying, that parents of both sides meet and they decide on the engagement and the wedding. Like, there is a pre-ceremony even before engagement where it is decided that they are going to marry each other. It's called Roka in North India, ROKA. So coming from the fact that my parents maybe have expected doing this for me their whole life, like, I think it was a sigh of relief for them that they don't have to go through all that stuff and planning. Like, we used to receive, like, almost every other day call from my parents and to Rachel, like, can we help in any way? So in our wedding, like, just to give you an example, like, both our parents contributed and we asked them not to. We told them not needed, but they both contributed. But I have friends in which they have decided no multiple ceremonies, we are going to do one, and both parents are going to contribute. So, but usually I think, especially, and I don't want to speak for the whole of India, but I'm seeing in my circle, with my friends, with my cousins, usually both the sides decide that they are going to uh, take it like 50-50, all the expenses, and they don't want to stress everybody out. They may throw a small reception in their hometown if they are from a different hometown, but mostly I think it's a good thing that it's trending towards sharing the expenses.
Okay, so do you guys want to share a little bit about how you got engaged, and then how did you kind of started planning your wedding when you started realizing that you have different cultural traditions? Did you have any pre-wedding events? You mentioned roka. Did you guys do that?
No, we didn't,
No,
but
it sounded really hard. I mean, I think most modern couples at this point, they kind of decide together, like, we're ready to get married. But we're still in this weird time where, like, it's still expected, at least in America, for the guy to propose. Not saying that's right. It's just what the culture is right now. So the way, like, Vidur had actually started looking at rings after he and I discussed, like, yeah, we want to get married. And he looked for a few months, apparently. Got my sister's help and everything until, like, one day I think he was just frustrated, didn't know what to do. And he was like, will you go ring shopping with me? And I was like, yes. So we found one together that we really liked. And then it was just kind of horrible because I knew it was sitting in the house somewhere and that it was going to happen at some point. And so one day, I remember we were seeing each other on the weekend. So one Friday I had driven up to his apartment, and I came with my dog like I always did. And I opened the door and he had strung up lights throughout the apartment and hung pictures of us throughout our relationship across all the lights and written like notes on the back, like cute love notes. And on the last one, I think it said, like put the dog outside, like I'm hiding in the other room. And so I went in the other room, and I don't even remember anything from that part because I was just like, ah! I told him really early on that we're like very. I just told him that I didn't want a lot of people around at the proposal. I didn't want that kind of attention on us because I knew I'd be a mess and I would want us to like just have our privacy for a minute. And so that was a perfect way for him to do it.
Yeah. It's so cool how even you knowing that you guys talked about getting married, you picked your ring, and like you just being really involved into the process, it still affected you emotionally, like like you wouldn't have known about it, it's kind of the same. So what happened after that? How long was your engagement, and then what did you started to do after you got engaged?
Well, kind of the first thought that we had when we got engaged was that we, like Vidur said, he knew he wanted to stay in America. And we knew that the process for getting, what is it?
Just the EAD permit to work.
Okay.
Yeah, for him to get a work permit, which would eventually become a green card. We knew that the process was like years. And it has been, I think, 2 or 3 years for the whole thing. So pretty soon after we got engaged, we actually did go to the courthouse in Waco, and we got married there in a really small ceremony, like literally had 2 friends as witnesses. But we did not intend for that to be our, what would you call it?
The anniversary date, I guess. Like that's more of us saying that like we have known for like 1.5 years now that we want to get married. Like we had discussed it. We had already, even before engagement, we had started discussing our life together, what we want to do. So it was interesting. The way I remember it is after engagement, like I had put a veto that for 1 month at least, we are not going to discuss about wedding planning. And it lasted 2.5 weeks only.
Nice.
So I had said, because we had planned a trip also to celebrate it. And it was just like, I was like, it has taken a lot for us to come here. And I just wanted to say, like, let's just wait for 1 month to enjoy this before celebrate the moment. So again, it didn't last 1 month. Just to anybody who's hearing it, would never last a month.
No.
So just like 1 month after the engagement, like that was already planned. Like within 2-3 days of engagement, we had decided like, okay, if it's coming late, we should start the process. because it is 8 months that we did not want to wait for the paper documentation process, because that delays a lot and it takes a lot of time. So
And so as far as like wedding planning itself, like kind of the first thing it was mostly me planning the wedding, but like I needed a ton of his input because I had decided that we should do an Indian and American blended wedding. We had talked about whether to do a wedding in Texas and then fly to India and do a wedding in India. And for us, that just seemed like far too much fuss over one couple, as well as it felt like we were keeping the cultures very separate. And for us, we wanted to blend them together in that moment, in that special day. So once we had made that big decision, that was really helpful. Like we said, we were already married. We didn't need to have the day, but we wanted to have the day to show people a unified front, to show them an expectation of what our relationship was going to be from then on out, and invite them to join in celebrating that with us.
Yeah. Did they know that you guys were legally married, or was it a surprise?
We told them in a couple of weeks. Like
we told our families.
Like my brother knew. My brother knew before. My brother knew the day that I was gonna get legally married, and I think for her family, we decided to break it to them over dinner that weekend. And I usually joke with her family a lot, and like that's how we decided to do it. Like her mom was pulling my leg for something, and I was like, well, you can't do anything, I'm married. And she said, not yet. I was like, ask again. And then like it took her mom like 5 minutes to realize that I'm not joking. She kept on looking at Rachel and asking like, is he joking or is he not?
I can't lie to my mom.
Yeah. So we took them to dinner. Like we took them actually to an Indian restaurant that they wanted to go in Dallas for a really long time. And this was the funny part, that like it took her 5 minutes to believe that this is true, and which is how we wanted it. As Rachel said, like we do not want sometimes a lot of attention to the couple. So to us. So we did not. My brother said that he would come to Waco to witness this, and he would bring his family. And I was like, no, you don't need to do that. Like, I was like, it's my respect to you that I'm telling you that you are the only person from anybody, like you and my sister-in-law. You have taken so much care of me since I've come to US. Like, you are the only person who I would tell this to right now. And similarly, like we told immediate families, but we told them not to share it with other people, because we did not want that kind of attention around it, that we are going through the process. And again, as soon as we signed that, we actually did all of our documentations ourselves. Like we did not hire a lawyer to go through the EAD approval process. So it took a lot of research for us, which was really, really helpful, because now we understand the process ins and out, and my brother helped a lot in that too.
Oh, that's good. I also had just a quick courthouse wedding, also for immigration reasons, that we just needed papers quickly. And that was almost 11 years ago, and we said when we signed the papers that we're going to have a proper wedding, and we never had it. So it's good to hear that you guys actually, put the effort in planning and doing it.
My idea was like your idea. I wasn't even sure I wanted a wedding or not. I was more in your, it was a discussion. Like I actually said, I was like, either you can do this or I can take you on 3 international trips. What do you want to do?
You picked the wedding.
Yeah, I'm pretty girly like that.
Yeah.
Like I dreamed about it. I wanted it, and like I said, it was important to have like a day to show people what our culture was like, blended culture.
Yeah, if you have those values, then it's more important than whatever you comparing it with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Rachel, what did your family say when they heard that you are gonna marry somebody who's from a different culture?
Well, my mom was totally fine. Like, she actually had dated guys from the Middle East, from, I can't even remember, a lot. My parents are divorced. I should have.
Okay.
So, I had grown up watching her date guys from any race, and, never, obviously was never an issue. And so I was really thankful that had always, I always felt really privileged in that sense, that I knew that I would never have a problem with the color of anyone that I dated, which is great. And so she was ecstatic because she, quote, always wanted someone who took care of my baby girl's heart. That's my Texas accent for you. And she could literally see how happy Vidur made me all the time. Like, no one had ever just made me smile and glow as much as he did and does. So she was just ecstatic. My dad, on the other hand, I could feel a little bit of tension from his side because he grew up in Mississippi, which is very Southern Baptist. Like, just the whole family is very Southern Baptist. And I know he would have preferred that I married, a good Southern Christian boy. But that wasn't my type. And so, but I mean, once he met Vidur, there was no issue. Like, he could see that he was, good head on his shoulders, took care of me, spoke to him with respect and everything. So really, I was lucky to have not a lot of issues there.
Yeah, that's good. So did your cultural differences impact your wedding planning, or when did you mentioned that you were thinking about having two separate weddings in your own different countries or blending them together. So once you decided that you're going to blend them together, what was kind of your starting point of, okay, now how are we going to do this?
So I think first of all was who to invite. That was one of the big things, because again, like, the starting point for me was, I don't think I need a wedding, but I know it's very important to you, so we'll have one. So first, that was the starting point. She had already had her mind on getting married in Waco. There's a beautiful bridge in Waco over the river. That's where we are gonna get married. So we decided. So that was the next part, was the guest list of that. So I think that's where the next biggest decision came in. And that's where I think that was the decision that kind of merged into a full cultural discussion between her and me. Like, first of all, who do we want to invite? Why are we inviting this? Why are we inviting these people? So we had a very small wedding, around 60 people only, and just immediate family and 3 best friends and their spouses from each side. So once we get into this, the theme of the wedding itself started making itself, like, what would you like to have? So it almost became like one of the question was, what about extended family? And I was like, it would be really hard for my extended family to fly here. And we did not want something where there were 30 people who know me and 170 people who know Rachel. So it becomes intimidating for everybody. So as that got in, then it started getting into every discussion. So the thing of having themes from both the cultures suddenly started. So what's the food? So we actually drove in Indian food from Dallas because there wasn't a restaurant in Waco that served it. So that became, and Texan barbecue on the other side as that. And then we had a huge discussion. Both of us are very agnostic spiritual. We are not very religious. So we did not want a lot of religion, a religious undertone in our wedding, but we do wanted to respect that both our parents are religious. So it started happening like that. Every single theme became that whatever is going to happen, it's going to happen as a mixture. Anybody who goes there, they should discuss both culture equally. Anybody who comes out of the wedding, sees something of Indian culture and sees something equivalent of the American culture. So that is how I think it started developing. And one of the things I remember is especially from my culture, there is a lot of things that go. So just to give you an example, and Rachel can add more to it, is we usually have a Sangeet, which is a day before the wedding where families meet, and there is a little bit of like dancing and a little bit of a small ceremony of just family meeting each other and respecting each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that is very similar to a rehearsal dinner.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have a rehearsal in India. So we kind of merged that to create both those points that we are like, no, there is going to be a place where we are going to meet,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to help in like merging both cultures. And after that, like we started looking into more things like, as you know, in India, in a Hindu wedding, usually there is like the holy fire in the middle, and you take 7 rounds around it. So she was like, "Do you want something like that?" And I was like, "No, because it's super hot outside, and we don't want to start a fire." So, and again, that to me became way more religious than
Mm-hmm.
what we wanted. And similarly, on her side, I was like, well, do you want anything from the American culture side? Like, do you want any verses from Bible or anything? And she was like, no, that's too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually we came to the fact that both our parents, we gave them 2-3 minutes, both sets of parents, 2-3 minutes to say, like, we wanted to respect the fact that what they are have made us what we are.
Mm-hmm.
So, and their religion is a huge part of it. So we wanted to give respect to that. So my parents read 2 verses from Gita, which is our religious book, and your parents.
Yeah, my dad was, like I said, very religious, and he read a few lines from the Bible that were his favorite. And then my mom is very emotional, speaks from the heart, and just talked about how she was happy to have her in the family and how she was officially her blessing. And so they did that during the actual ceremony instead of us having a pastor or preacher up there officiating. Since we were already married, we could do whatever we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Just had our parents publicly give a blessing in front of everyone.
Oh, that's such
Yeah.
a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That.
And Rachel worked very hard to even put it before the wedding. So like we had first look pictures, which is more American culture, but we also had a barat and a doli, which is like that I actually rode in on a horse with my family, which is part of the Indian culture. So she really wanted it because we were selecting what we want. And I wanted it too. I was like, I want my parents to see like that Rachel is very accepting of the culture. So I think like as you see from rehearsal dinner to the first look to the barat, and after that exchange of ring is common in both places, to the parents saying their favorite verses, to the food, like, and I actually tied the Mangal Sutra on her neck, which is kind of like equivalent of ring exchange. That like the husband puts like a Mangal Sutra, which is a necklace, beaded necklace on his wife. So to the food, it was absolutely like everything was like this is a celebration of both our cultures, and not in and not to disrespect, but not in a religious way, but more in like who we are. Even the drinks, I think, was like her and my favorite drink. My favorite drink is whiskey, and her favorite is.
Mine was moonshine.
So we love this.
Both of it. I love that you guys kind of ask each other questions before the wedding of, okay, what part of your culture do you want to bring to the wedding? And then you reverse the question and said, what do you want me to present from my culture on our wedding? That is such a good compromise and diffusion of the two cultures together. I love that. I mean, because you think about it as far as food or music goes or outfit, those are kind of the easier things, sort of say, to blend together because you can figure out to have both present. But when it comes to the actual ritual or religion or what are we going to do when we arrive there up to the ceremony together, and seems like you just did such a good job of doing one this and then the other. And especially you mentioned Vidur before that when you are in a foreign country, you kind of immediately lose that advantage of your culture. So you kind of have to put more into it to balance it out because you are in America. Did you feel that way a little bit?
I did personally, and part of the fact was because I was in America for 5 years at that point.
Mm-hmm.
There were parts like that I had forgotten of my culture, like because I hadn't been to an Indian wedding for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
So usually, like what I knew from my message, if my friend was getting married, they would say, "Hey, this day was my roka, this day was my engagement," and so if you're not part of a culture for 5 years, I'm not saying you forget everything, but you forget some nuances. So a lot of that was even like her and I sitting on internet and just looking at like, she would look up articles and say like, hey, I found this article on North Indian wedding. Like this describes like all the symbolism and everything of the culture and which of these part is important to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I would tell her that like how some of these are like over exaggerating, that like we don't need to have a 5-day functions or anything. That is rare that it happens. I'm not saying it does not happen, but again, in my friend circle, it rarely happens. We guess I have a lot of practical friends. So part of that was discussing with her and discussing the logistic of it. Because from my mind, initially, the Bharat was really hard because I was like, it's like having a horse there or something. But when we realized that that would be a really great representation, then she worked around to see how we can get horses and stuff. So I'll let her speak to that a little bit.
This is going to sound very Texan of me, but my mom has a farm with like 15 horses. And she raises them. They're show horses. And so she actually had some connections and she found someone in Waco with a beautiful white horse that they let us use for free, which that's like,
that's amazing. And then how did you go with did you get a permit or what did you have to do as far as permission to have a horse?
Texas. It's Texas.
Okay.
That's it. You don't need permission.
But
you just get on a horse and by the river and you're fine.
One of the things that helped us because it is a park, like a government park. So the whole road in front of the park and everything was blocked for us for a private event.
Okay.
So we could do anything. That's what helped us also because we did not do like in India, it's almost sometime half a mile long Bharat or something. Ours was just like one street. So, and which is the street that was blocked by the, because it's part of the park almost, so it's blocked by us. So that helped us like go through that. But we did research fire permit initially.
We did. When I was asking, what do you call it? The ring around the fire?
It's Ferris.
Ferris?
Yeah.
When we researched that, I actually talked to the city and I asked them about it. And they said if it's for a religious purpose, you can have open flame in the park. But if it's not religious, you cannot. And so I talked to him and he was like, well, I don't want religion in the way. So.
Interesting.
You learn so many new things while planning a wedding. It's amazing.
Yes. So what other traditions, outfits? I would like you to can you talk a little bit about what you were wearing, your dress, Rachel? And I saw that. Yeah. You had a henna on your foot too, is that right?
Yeah. So the night before at the rehearsal dinner, his brother and his parents had planned it and everything, that's an American thing that the groom's family will plan the rehearsal dinner. And so they found a henna artist in the area and it had her come and just do designs for everyone. And so I didn't want it to be all over my hands. I didn't want it so ostentatious, but I wanted it somewhere. And so I actually got it on my feet. And there's a relatively new tradition in Indian weddings where you hide the groom's name somewhere in the henna. And so I asked her to spell out Vidur on the henna. And so I guess if you look closely at a picture of my feet, you can find his name.
That's such a cool idea. Okay, and then your dress?
And so my dress, I am actually like so blown away that I was able to find someone who could see my vision for the dress. But my mom, my sister, and I had been to a few different stores in one day. Like I tried to explain to them that I wanted something that was Indian looking, but like it was white, like a wedding dress, kind of saying like, well, maybe like a crop top and a long skirt. And that doesn't really exist in wedding industry very much.
Yeah.
And finally we came on this like really, really unassuming small house almost.
Mm-hmm.
And the woman who ran the shop actually attended an Indian church in the area. So they weren't Hindu, but they were Coptic Christians.
Mm-hmm.
And so they dressed in the same style as people from Vidur's area. And so when I explained my vision to her, she was like, "Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about."
Wow.
And she pulled out a few pieces, and she pulled out a long thing of lace and kind of draped it around my body and said like, I said like, well, maybe like a sari, and but when she actually put it together, I realized it was lehenga.
Yeah.
What is the top
Uh,
called?
I think it's the full lehenga and choli.
Lehenga, choli, and then I forget the name of the drape that was all around me. But she actually made it so that the drape could also be turned into a really long train, which was my vision from when I was a little girl. It's a very American thing to have a super long, lacy train. And then after the ceremony, she made it to where I could detach all that and just be comfortable in the lehenga.
That's so creative. Because
even Vidur's suit, like we spent a lot of time finding his too.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time, and initially, like, it was really interesting. I think we kind of knew what we wanted. Like, Rachel had looked at a couple of suits that she thought would look good, and I just wanted something that was slim fit and not too baggy, and just like I did not want a tuxedo almost, and like so eventually, like we both like tested out a few suits, and like the Mandarin collar was the one that like we really liked, that represents, because in India it's known as Nehru collar, and which is on one of our prime minister's name that he made it famous. So it was really like nice, and we went to a couple of different places, and again the issue of searching it outside of your country is that we'd go to places and they would suggest a price, and I would just talk to my sister, and she would say like, "Oh, I can just get this for you, like at like 1/8 the price of this. Like they are overcharging." And again, the fact is like we weren't worried of overpaying, but we weren't finding anything that actually looked worth the price. And then finally, it's really interesting that one of my American friends, actually one of my coworkers, she told me that she had gone to an Indian shop with one of her Indian friends, and she said that she loved like the clothes that were there, and it was literally 12 minutes from our house. So we went there, and within like 30 minutes we were done shopping. It was, for me, it was less of a search that we knew the style. It was more of like finding like who does this, because we really were worried that we may have to get it from India. And the issue was like measurements and everything. And most of my family were flying like just like 4 days before my wedding. So if something goes wrong, there was nothing we can do. Dallas especially is such a multicultural city that it was just finding the right shop. Because we went to a shop and they essentially put a price tag of like $1,500 on the suit, and we're like, it's not that we can't spend that much. I don't think it was worth it. The suit wasn't worth it. And again, like that is another thing. Whenever you say that this is for your wedding, then the price increases by 3 times regardless. So
yes. Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
This shop was hilarious because we had a man helping us, and we said we would like a black Nehru collar suit. And he was like, "Are you sure? Black?" It's like, that's so boring. You don't want red. You don't want all these bright colors, you know, because in an Indian celebration, you don't wear black and white. You wear bright colors.
And it's really funny because like after Rachel went to try some things, because she found some things there to try too, he came to me and he asked me, he was like, "You're not from Gujarat, right? Which is a state in West India." And I was like, "No, I'm not." And he was like, "Yeah, because nobody from my state would wear a black suit in wedding, in a black suit in wedding. So it was really funny because he was like, "Hey, we consider black as unlucky, so that's why we
Yeah.
don't keep a lot."
And I
Like,
was worried about wearing white because that's the color of mourning.
Mhm.
But I specifically asked him about that too. Like, is it okay if I wear white? Because it's really important to me that I do. And he was like,
Uh-huh. Was there anything maybe for you, Rachel, that because you said that you dreamed about having a wedding, since you were little, something that you had to compromise on?
One thing is like I had envisioned a completely different dress because I never would have put two cultures together to make this unique
Right.
dress. But really, the bigger thing was in like the invitation list. Probably,
Mhm.
I don't like that much attention on me with like so many people staring at me for 4 hours. I had never enjoyed the idea of that, but it was just set in my head like, well, that's what you do on a wedding. And my sister had gotten married, my brother had gotten married already. That's what their weddings were like. All the cousins, all the aunts, all the grandmas invited. But when we sat down and decided that it would just be immediate family, that was where I was like, okay, my mom's gonna be mad. Uh, she was very upset for a while, as were some aunts and uncles. But we're okay now. We got through that, and so the biggest compromise was knowing that I would have to deal with the emotions of hurting a lot of people's feelings while trying to get them to understand that it's not y'all, it's us. Like that we were just trying to do what was best to celebrate our cultures and to get our closest people in our lives to have them get to know each other.
Yeah. So, Vidur, you said that your immediate family flew to America from India. Can you maybe share us a little bit of maybe the logistics or some of the how do you go, just to give some advice to other couples who are planning on flying their family, friends, or, wedding guests to a different country? What would your advice be?
I think I can't thank my brother enough for that. Like my brother has helped me so many times in life, but this was the one time, like one thing that we could not do because we are planning for the wedding. We just gave him the date and we said like, hey, this is the date we are getting married. Can you please make sure that my mom, dad, my sister, my brother-in-law, and their 2 kids are there on the day? And he managed everything. Like he did a lot of stuff because some of the things that had happened is my sister had tried to come on a tourist visa initially. I don't know whether it was denied or she wasn't able to come. So there was a lot of pressure on that. So first of all, like, again, I'll give my advice later, but it was my brother who managed it really, really well. He planned everything, the dates and he even planned because like coming to US from India is a huge, huge task. So he had even planned to take them around US at different cities. My parents come to India once every 2 years, my sister less than that. This was my sister's first time in US. So he had planned my sister's family's first time in US. So one thing I would advise is, again, like plan ahead, plan as much ahead as you can, put enough time that like if visas can get rejected once, you have enough time to apply for it again. That is a logistic advice I'll give you. The other thing is like be really sure, because it's a huge task to come to a different country, that there are a lot of people that love you, but make it about who are the people who you want there also. Like that to me was the biggest thing. One of my best friend, like out of my 4 best friends, only 2 could come, and one of them was in US and the other one was in India, and the other 2 were in Europe, but they couldn't even come. So one of the thing is like set up your expectations accordingly in that way, and I would say think of it about who you want, and sometimes, as I say, like make work on what makes you happy in that part, because I could have sent an invite to all my extended family. It would have been a logistic nightmare, and we had nobody, and we would be taking calls all day to figure out. And but if somebody plans to invite a lot of people, I believe like working through a travel agent would work better. If you are getting anywhere more than like 15 people, I would say work through a travel agent. That would be helpful. Because personally, when it's your family, you can plan a lot. But when it's a lot of friends and other people, it becomes a huge, huge issue of getting people on every date. So that's what I would recommend. But usually I would say, like in my experience, and again, I'm biased on this, that
Mm-hmm.
because once you start thinking it from that angle, like that perspective makes it really easy for you to cut something out or keep some things in there.
That's a great advice because if you get overwhelmed with who to invite and then it just becomes this big party for your guests and all you can think of is how to please others instead of thinking about why are we really here? We're really here for each other, right? And then if you really carefully pick people that are the closest to you, they're really gonna take that effort, take time off work, and pay the airplane tickets to actually go to your wedding.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, does your parents speak English? Did you guys have any language, splitting languages, or doing any bilingual ceremony parts or anything like that?
No, my parents speak English. However, as it's American versus like Indian English, so a little bit of dialect plays in. But my brother again was wonderful there. Like when the parents from both sides met, my brother was always there to help them understand. Like, because even if they understand English, like some words are in different contexts. Like some of the words that we use are never used here. So my brother helped a lot in there. My brother and my sister-in-law both helped a lot in there because they were there for the first meeting and then they let the parents, because their parents were mostly talking to each other. Like when they were like that was our biggest thing, that they should get to know each other. And my sister-in-law and my brother helped them getting comfortable because Rachel and I were busy with the wedding. So they helped them get comfortable. And also Rachel's sister, Elizabeth, she helped them getting comfortable around each other. So my brother and my sister-in-law and her sister, they helped like kind of create like this fact that this is a family and everything is fine. Like if you don't understand, ask again, like this kind. So all three of them really helped in doing that. My sister-in-law also worked really hard to get my sister and brother-in-law like acquainted to what is going to happen, like what part of this is American culture. And her name is Pathali. She is actually Christian from Nagaland in India. So she understood a lot part of that culture and she helped a lot of people understand what is happening. And she was like a godsend in there.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, because a lot of time, multicultural couples, that wedding would be the first time when their parents meet for the first time with each other. So especially if there's some language barrier, it's just really important to start that relationship from the right foot,
Yeah. Another reason we had the wedding so small, like we needed to give them time to actually talk to each other and not be overwhelmed by everything.
Yes, that's great. Do you have any like favorite part of your wedding day that sticks out, that was maybe even unexpectedly the best one, and that you are still talking about it?
So we had decided that during the ceremony, we didn't want people like taking their phones out and not being in the moment and everything. And so we said, okay, when we walk up to the ceremony spot, let's just like have a quick announcement to remind people like, hey, please don't use your phones and take photos during the ceremony. Well, on accident, we just said, hey, please don't use your phones. And everyone took it to mean don't use your phones the entire night, even during the reception. And so I noticed during the reception, like, hey, nobody's like taking pictures. I guess you're having fun, whatever. And then my friends told me later on they thought that we were being really, really harsh, saying like no phones. But that in the end, they actually did have a lot more fun and actually got to know the people around them and like were forced to talk and have fun. And they said it was like the best wedding they'd ever been to because of that and because of the intimacy of it all. So that was a big surprise, but I was kind of glad it happened in the end.
Yeah.
I think for me, I think not unexpected, but just the families having fun together. Like that was really, really good. Like seeing the family, it was a hot May day in Texas. So just seeing the families coming out and enjoying the part. And it's definitely something that like once it's done, you take a sigh of relief almost to say like there was a lot of planning, but it's done now. So as I told you, like I just wanted to get married in court, but I enjoyed every bit of it. It was really great, and people stayed till late. Our friends stayed till a lot. They loved the food, and it was just like seeing like two cultures mold so closely together was just really, really like it was really surreal. I actually our family was together, like my side of the family, we were all together in the same place after 9 years.
Wow.
So that was like a surreal feeling, like when we are sitting there, like, and again, we are leaving for honeymoon the next day. So so we made sure that as soon as we came from honeymoon, we visited the family again to kind of solidify the fact that like this is our whole family together at the same spot.
It's so important to be in a present moment, because you said like wedding planning, the wedding day, going to the honeymoon, and talking to this person, that person, and it's like I sometimes realize that my brain is off to the next task and thinking about what's next and I need to just have to slow down and enjoy the moment and enjoy with the people that are there around me.
And one more thing I realized was like as we are thinking about what you're talking, especially in multicultural wedding, one of the things, especially for the couples that keep a small wedding, one of the thing to learn is like if you're trying to fuse two culture, one of you would have to be creative, one of you would have to be practical, and you would have to wear that hat. And it doesn't have to be the same person in every single context, because it is a lot to take. But you need a little bit of both to make it as something executable as well as something beautiful. You cannot go, if you really plan to do it, you cannot go on one side or the other. So that is what we did a lot, that if you are planning as a couple, like you cannot single-handedly plan it, because then it won't be like you have to get both parties involved. There are things you would feel like are way bigger deal than they actually are. And when you think about them deeply, that would you remember this later? Like, would you remember this part of the ceremony later? Would you remember these things? So what we remember from our wedding is our family and how everybody was having fun. And the part of the things that we did choose together, like that we liked the barat as well as the first look picture and the rehearsal dinner before. So a little bit of that is like we have practical and creative both. And if you're doing a small wedding, especially, like try to see if you can, like one of the things I did was whenever I had to contact somebody, like what I would say a vendor, I would just say like, hey, it's a gathering of 60 people and not even mention it's a wedding. Because once you mention wedding, the prices go high. So I did a lot of that practically, talking to anybody, like for our food vendors and everybody, we kept on like, that helps, the small size helps. Because if you say 200, then most people know what is happening. So I think those are the kind of practical things you can do to reduce your like getting overwhelmed.
Yeah. Never really thought about it. And you already married legally, so it really is a party,
Yeah, it was a party.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, as we come to the end of our episode, Rachel, maybe can you share some of your advice or recommendation that you would maybe have for, multicultural couples who are about to plan a wedding that's blended?
I'd say I guess I have two pieces of advice. The first one is make sure you have a person outside of your future spouse that you can go to who will support you through the ups and downs through it, who will back you. For me, it was my sister who was my maid of honor, and for Vidur, it was Mayank who was his what do you call it? Who was his best man.
Mm-hmm.
His brother helped him get his whole family over here and navigate all of the cultural ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister helped me like stay sane. She had already had a wedding. She understood my mom and like how to talk to my mom and through that kind of thing. And she was just ready to do anything she could to support me, to like help make flowers for the wedding or go dress shopping with me. So that was amazing. And then the second piece is make sure you are constantly talking to and listening to your partner about what they want, because I mean, I planned the majority of this wedding, but I was only able to do that because I discussed it with him over and over and checked in with him constantly and said, are you okay with this? Are you comfortable with this? Does it respect your culture? Am I comfortable with it?
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you're just like going down the deep end without actually checking in with this person who you're going to spend your life with.
Yeah. Those are very good advices. Even for non-multicultural couples, I think it's very important to not lose the purpose of that whole event that you're planning.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, do you guys have any place where maybe the listeners can check out some of the beautiful pictures or get in contact with you, maybe ask some questions if they have any more?
Yeah, so he's not on social media a lot, but I am more. So you can find me at Instagram.com/RachMillMod, RachMillMod. And if you want to see like the whole album of our wedding, you can go find it on Facebook, Facebook.com/RachelMillerModgill. That's MOUDGIL.
Okay, awesome.
And if you want to be in touch with me, I'm like I'm active on Instagram, but very rarely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even have the Facebook app. I never use Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I have a Facebook account, but I never do. LinkedIn is another way. Like if somebody really needs to ask a question on that, like they can search me. My Instagram is with VID_mod, MOD. And LinkedIn, they can just search on my name, Vidur Modgill. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one with that name. So,
okay.
That's a good perk of having that name. So,
you literally can Google us and you'll find everything.
Yeah.
Our name is unique.
Unique name, yes.
Yeah.
That's good. I have that advantage too. Well, thank you so much, Rachel and Vidur, for being here with me. I know this is a little bit longer than I planned, but I really enjoyed, listening your stories and getting all the good information. I think you're going to help a lot of couples who are planning Indian American weddings. So thank you so much again for being on my show.
Thank you for including us. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.